Today's session, why students are choosing the GRE for greater flexibility. My name is Freire Rivera, and I'm excited to host today's session with Study in the USA and ETS, the makers of the GRE. When students today are planning for graduate school, they are rarely focused on just one option. Many are exploring different countries, academic systems, and multiple career paths all at the same time. Now, because of that, flexibility has become one of the most important factors when choosing an admissions test. The GRE is designed to support that kind of decision-making. It is accepted by more than 20,000 graduate, business, and law programs worldwide. It is recognized across a wide range of disciplines, and it is structured to give students more control during their test experience. All of this allows students to apply broadly, compare opportunities, and move forward without being locked into a single decision too early. Now, today we're joined by speakers who have used the GRE to build strong academic pathways. We have Dina Dragoljic, research professional at the University of Michigan. We have Pedro Henrique, the Souza Barbosa, PhD student at Purdue University. And we encourage you to share your questions in the chat throughout the session. All right, so before we begin, I'm going to ask both of you to introduce yourself. Where are you from? What are you studying, working on, and your academic journey so far?
I can go first. So, my name is Dina. I am a research lab specialist at the University of Michigan. I work in their biomedical engineering department, and I got my bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering from the Florida Institute of Technology. I graduated in 2021, and then I went on to do my master's of science in biomedical engineering at the University of Michigan. And I graduated in 2023, and I'm actually going back to school this fall for my PhD at U of M. And I'm from Italy and Serbia.
Love that. Okay, Pedro, how about you?
Great introduction. My name is Pedro. I'm a PhD student at Purdue University. I'm from the industrial engineering department, but I work also with biomedical engineering related fields. My work is on skin interface wearable sensors, and I use biomimetic approaches to design these sensors so they look like human tissues. I've graduated from my bachelor's and my master's in Brazil in two different places. In my bachelor's, I went to Federal University of Bahia, and on my master's, I went to State University of Campinas. And from there, I ended up applying to Purdue and got into the program. And I'm in my last year. I am in my last year of the program, and hopefully be graduating in May, next May.
Okay, perfect. And it looks like we've been joined by our third guest. We have Gustavo Stevanin de Souza, MS student at Purdue University. Gustavo, you're just in time, so why don't you introduce yourself to the crowd?
Hello guys, how are you? I'm Gustavo, from Brazil too, and I just concluded my master's here at Purdue University too in agricultural economics, and I'm about to start my PhD also in agricultural economics here at Purdue University. It's been a long way, but we're here to try our best, right?
All right, perfect. Okay, so let's get started. Why don't we? The first question is for you specifically. So your journey is especially interesting because, well, you were born in Europe before coming to the US for your studies. So can you please share what that transition really looked like for you and how you approached choosing where to study and what to pursue?
Yeah. As I said, I actually came here for my bachelor's first. I came here in 2017 for that, and my approach was kind of two-sided. So I was looking for a really, really strong engineering program because my passion was biomedical engineering and combining medicine and engineering together. So I really wanted to find a program that had a strong engineering background and that also had a good international student basis. And then I also was an athlete. I played competitive tennis, so I wanted to see if I could leverage that and keep doing that while pursuing higher education. So that's kind of how I decided to come to the US. And like the program that I chose was kind of a combination of all of those things. And then my transition was pretty easy, all things considered. It was 2017, and I was really supported by my university. It was a smaller university, so it was easier to like meet people and they have a really, really big international student population, so it was really easy to integrate within the university. So that's kind of how I came to the US for my bachelor's. And then when I was deciding to do my master's, it was during the pandemic, actually. It was in 2020. I started my master's in 2021, and I knew I wanted to continue in the field that I was in, so biomedical engineering, but I was intent on finding a program that filled in the spaces that exact current university, so Florida Tech, didn't have. So I kind of looked at the opposite end of the spectrum. I went from a very small university to a really big university and just trying to leverage those opportunities.
Well, I love to hear that the transition wasn't super hard. It definitely is an advantage of small schools, right? And that's what a lot of people look for when they go for that kind of institution. But Pedro and Gustavo, since we haven't heard from you guys yet, so I want to ask you, before beginning your graduate journey, were you considering multiple options, like different programs, fields, or even countries?
You can go, Pedro.
All right, let's go. So, my first step on the graduate school is actually in Brazil, and I did consider other countries. I also consider especially Canada. There was a university I was interested in. But I gotta say, living undergrad, and for very little support in terms of the guidance, uh, because most of Brazilians, I would say, are still getting to know the pathways to join academia outside Brazil independently without relying on Brazilian supporting agencies like the research agencies we have nationwide. So because of that, it wasn't the best application process, and I ended up deciding to stay to build up a stronger CV. So after I finished my master's with a 4.0 GPA, I decided I was ready to really go for it and apply. And I considered a few places, but my master's program, the deadline for the final thesis submission was overlapping with the applications of most universities, so I couldn't really apply for much. Me myself, I like to do personalized applications for each university I apply to, and then I had a couple of maybe a handful options of professors who have reached back to me, and I actually decided to go with my PI because we had the opportunity here in this lab to do a very broad scope type of research where we have overlapping material science, human factors, nanomanufacturing, and a lot of chemistry too. So I'm a very curious person, so I said that's the best place for me to explore and really figure out if I want to stay on that field, because I have been figuring out my academic pathway as I move. So I'm very curious. I go to something I like, and then I go to the next step because I like something more. Now I feel like I finally found my place. So that's how I end up here.
I love that. Okay. Gustavo, I see you coming in and out. Are you able to hear us okay?
Yeah. I don't know why I was coming back in and out, but I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. How about
So
you?
yeah, about my journey. So in Brazil, my undergrad was in veterinary medicine that overlaps with animal science right there. So I was very much into like farm management and agribusiness kind of things. And as I was getting closer to the end of my graduation, I had to choose somewhere to be an intern. I had to find an internship. And since then, I was working in a consulting firm for
I believe we lost Gustavo. Yeah. I believe we lost Gustavo. We're going to move on for time, but hopefully you can join us. But thank you both for giving us those answers. Gustavo, if you can hear us.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
guys. I'm really sorry. It's the last time. But
no
well,
worries, no worries.
so I was working in consulting in Brazil in the end of my bachelor's degree in farm business and animal sciences. So I was in a consulting firm, and my boss at the consulting firm, he was friends with professors at Purdue University, and he invited me to come for an internship here at Purdue University. So throughout the internship, I met Purdue University, and I met the professors here at Purdue University, and I fell in love with academia and the things that we can do here in academia, through a master's degree, the research that we can do, and that really caught my eye. So I decided to apply for the master's in order to keep doing what I'm doing of like researching and learning more about agribusiness management and farm management. So that was my first contact with like master's degrees, and because I never thought about it before. But as soon as I got here and I learned that what you can do in academia, I fell in love with it, and I just kept going. Now I'm on the PhD now.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for
Mhm.
sharing.
Mhm.
So I know that many students today want to keep their options open for as long as possible, whether that is, across programs, disciplines, locations that we were talking about. So let's talk about how your test choice really supported that, right? Pedro, can you tell us why did you choose the GRE and how did it help you keep your options open during that application process?
Yeah, no, definitely. Um, Being pragmatic, GRE was the test that was required by most universities I was considering. And when talking about standardized tests and not language proficiency, I have never seen anyone requesting anything else than GRE for engineering applications. I know there's maybe GMAT if you're going for business school, but for us, GRE was, I would say, mostly the only test to take. And if there are no requirements instead of another course, there will be no standardized requirements at all, no standardized test requirements at all. So that said, I taking GRE would allow me to apply to virtually anywhere I wanted to. Virtually anywhere. I have considered a few different universities when applying for my PhD. All of them require GRE, and taking one single exam, I'll be capable to apply to all of them simultaneously. So you actually saved me a lot of time and efforts because I only had to prepare for one exam. I only had to pay to get prepared and to pay to to take one exam, and with that single exam, the GRE, I could actually apply for all universities I wanted to. So that's why I went for it.
No, for sure. I mean, like the budget aspect of it is really huge. I don't think people realize when applying to university abroad how many extra expenses there is along the way that you didn't realize were going to be there. So that's a very important point that you mentioned. But Dina, from your experience, having experienced both European and U.S. education systems, how important was it to choose from a test that allowed flexibility across different programs and institutions?
Yeah, it was important. Kind of similarly to what Pedro was saying, was it is widely accepted, and it's typically the requested standardized test for graduate school. When I was applying for my master's, I was looking at both US institutions, but also institutions in Europe. I applied to a couple of universities in Europe as well, and that was kind of like the common denominator between the universities was the GRE. At the time that I was applying, it was during the pandemic, so the GRE had actually been waived during that time for a very big chunk of universities, but I still thought that it was important to have just kind of a thread that like tied and like standardized me across different applications that I could go back to and like refer to like, oh, this is like an exam that I took and it applies everywhere. So from both like a financial perspective, a time perspective, it was easier just to take that one than to like try to like buff up my CV with like small tidbits that like each institution would require.
Yeah, totally. So the next question is for everybody, so feel free to pitch in. Did the fact that the GRE is accepted across multiple types of programs influence your decision at all when it comes to choosing the exam?
Yeah, I mean, as I think we both mentioned, it's kind of the standardized test that is accepted widely across programs. So you only have to like take one exam as opposed to having to take several exams and several different like courses of preparation. So it like streamlined the process for graduate admissions, I think.
Okay, perfect. So moving on from like a test experience perspective, what aspects of the GRE felt a little bit more flexible or manageable? Gustavo, I'm going to ask you specifically since you haven't spoken.
Sorry, what's the question?
From a test experience perspective, what aspects of the GRE felt a little bit more flexible or manageable?
Oh yeah, for me, what was the best part about the GRE was that I could do it at home. There's the GRE version at home, and that was amazing for me because I'm in a small town in Indiana, United States, so there aren't many centers around here. So being able to do it online through my computer from my bedroom, as you guys can see, it was really good because it made everything much easier for me and much more accessible. So that was the biggest and the best part of the journey for me was being able to do it on my own.
Love that. Does anybody else have a different answer?
No, I have to agree. I was actually taking the GRE during the pandemic. I think Dina mentioned the same. So there are no locations you can go and take the exam. And being able to take the test and get your application moving while most institutions were closed, well, that was a big difference for me. And the ability to take it from home, it's actually the thing that made it happen. So, and I feel like for most international students, there's a high chance that the place that you live is not the place that the GRE, the in-person GRE is taking place, the exam is taking place. So it also reduces the cost of having to commute and sometimes take a plane and travel to take the exam. So that also reduces the cost considerably.
Yes.
I think to add to that, it was also fairly easy to schedule. If you're taking it remotely from your home rather than having to abide by like a test center's scheduling, because like typically those schedules can be pretty limited to how many spots they have open and when they have the test scheduled. And if I remember correctly, it was like when I decided I wanted to do it, I could just go online and register really quickly to take it.
Yes.
No, absolutely. Okay, next question, also for everybody, so feel free to pitch in. How did that flexibility impact your confidence going into the exam?
A lot. It was much better because I mean, if I want to go, can I go first in that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
That flexibility that allows you to take it at home, at least made me much more confident to take it because I was at home, so I was wearing comfortable clothes. I had food before, I had water right next to me. I felt like that I had everything ready and set for my success. You know, I had everything I needed to have a successful exam. So this flexibility was really like made a very big difference than like going all the way to an exam center and a new place, new people that you don't know where they are. You don't know if you're gonna get there on time. It's kind of things like it gets very complicated. If you're at your own place, you feel that you're more at home and it just feels better. And for me, that was a big deal.
Yeah, no, test centers definitely get really stressful really easily. So
It's a whole environment that gets you stressed, right?
Yeah, and if I could add to that, the fact that you could take the test at the location that I have been practicing to it with the GRE at home, that also helps because you're used to the noises at that time of the day, you're used to the temperature fluctuations, the light fluctuations. So, and if you're probably taking that from home, you're used to the place itself and the people around you that will respect that you're taking an exam and be silent during that time. Sometimes when you're in the taking exams in a specific test location, many of the triggering stressors are not controllable, even though people from the institution tried their best to keep it silent. There could be someone on the streets playing loud music, or maybe a neighbor throwing a barbecue. So, and then for us, I mean, if you know the place has been trained on, and you know the internet is stable, you know your neighbors. That's a weekday; they probably at work. So that actually brings a little bit of peace of mind, and you don't have to worry much about those things. I remember taking a TOEFL before in a shared facility, and during the speaking part, when everybody starts to speaking, and sometimes if you're not there yet, or if you're over that part, though, that's a little bit distracting for the exam itself. So I know that sharing a place and taking exams is not necessarily the most peaceful And taking that at home was actually brought us the flexibility, but also the confidence that you knew nothing would change. You knew that there wouldn't be any stress or any triggering event of stress to disturb your exam.
Totally. What about you, Dina?
Pretty much the same thing that they've said, just because I also took it remotely. It was, you get to like control the environment you're in, and like you have more control over the area you're in and like your testing conditions and just the feeling of comfort, I guess, of taking it in your own space and not having to worry about traffic, getting to like a test center or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Did anybody enjoy the flexibility in particular of like the features that are designed in the exam itself? So like, for example, changing answers, moving between questions within a section. There's also a calculator in the quantitative section. Was any of that particularly helpful for you guys?
yeah, I mean, it was a pretty, as far as testing environment and like the way the test is structured, it was like simple to navigate, if that makes sense. Like the exam itself isn't easy, but like it's the platform itself is not hard to navigate. So that was a bonus. Like you like didn't have to, there wasn't like a learning curve to figuring out how to go through the manual portion of doing the exam.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
so next question. How do you approach preparing for the jury while managing other responsibilities? Which I think is like the most common asked question when it comes to like test preparation. It's like how you actually work out life balance, you know?
Yeah. Well, if I can
Yeah, go ahead.
pop in. So I think so most people who are taking the GRE, you either if you're in your bachelor's, you're taking it in your last year applying for like your master's or PhD, or if you're going from a master's to a PhD, you're taking it pretty close to like when you're also applying for the program. Like you want to give yourself a little bit of buffer time. Um, it's easiest if you're preparing for it while you're not actively in like the school year, if that makes sense. Like if you have like a summer break that's happening, that's probably like the best time to prepare for it because you don't have coursework on your mind. But if you do have coursework, I think it's just about setting time aside specifically in the day and like creating like a study routine for yourself and like trying to emulate the testing conditions as much as you can so that when you're actually taking the exam you've already prepped for what that's going to look like the day of.
For me, it was very similar to Dina. I was applying for the GRE, for the masters and taking the GRE while I was a research assistant slash intern here at Purdue. So I was basically working, so from like 9 to 5, and then I would get home around 6, and then I would try to study 2 to 3 hours per day from like 6 to 9, 6 to 8. So, and basically I was trying to find mock exams online or trying to find bank of questions or something like that. And every day for around like 30 to 40 days, like a month and a half, I was every day, like every 2 hours, every day for 2 hours, researching questions, rehearsing questions, practicing on myself and all. It was more about, for me, it was more about learning the kind of questions that would be asked in the jury and learning how to answer them as fast as I could. Because the content was very hard, but it was a content that I believe many of us had seen before in our lives. But for me, the trickiest part was the time. You had to be fast in the jury, right? Like you have a certain amount of time to reply the questions. So I was rehearsing a lot, trying my best to every day 2 hours of mathematics and very advanced in English that they ask in the GRE. So I was like practicing all that every day for around 30 days for 2 hours, and it worked.
That's awesome to hear. What about you, Phil?
Yeah. So I think the nicest thing about GRE compared to other standardized tests, or maybe I would say proficiency exams, is that for most proficiency exams, the universities only take your exam if it's only 1 year old. So if you take in your exam, you're in your final, like if you're an international student and in your final year, You gotta take your exam, and it has to be valid until the admission. So that's a span of, I don't know, maybe half a year. So you pretty much have half a year to prepare and take the exam, give a little buffer time to retake it if you didn't do that great. And that's a little stressful time-wise because you're also graduating. There's a lot of other commitments that you gotta put your time into. For the GRE, on the other hand, they usually take the GRE sometimes a couple of years. So you've taken the exam; it's valid sometimes for a couple of years, at least when I took it. So you have a little bit more flexibility on when to take it and a bigger span of time to get ready for the exam, right? And the other thing I would say is that there are a lot of platforms that provide good content to let you prepare for the exam, and you can keep track of your progress. When I was studying for the exam, I didn't have a lot of time. I was graduating, and I have to finish my thesis. I had to submit a manuscript, and on the other hand, I had to take the exam. But I found a single month that I was putting out 6 hours a day of effort only for the exam. And that's kind of a commitment. Like before everything, you gotta get it done. So I prioritized that, and I was able to have a good result from the test, and which actually, of course, strengthened my application, I would say. But yeah, long story short, I feel like the ability that we have of actually having a bigger span of time in terms of our test validity, that's also a good thing.
Yeah, like totally. I know we all briefly touched on the timeline, the studying timeline for GRE, but if you were to give someone advice, they're asking you specifically, how much time do I need to realistically prepare for this exam? What would be your answer?
I think it. Oh, sorry, Gustavo.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think there's a component of it that is person specific because it depends on how comfortable you are with mathematics versus how comfortable you are also with like the English language because this is targeted towards international students. There is a really big English section to it. So I think part of it really depends on your level of comfort with the certain subjects. I think from what everyone here has been saying is we only spent like about a month studying for it. I would give a person more time than that. I would probably say like if you wanted to like not be too stressed about cramming for the exam and preparing yourself and like having the time to like take several practice tests is you could do it in like 2-3 months, I think. Obviously you don't have to if you feel comfortable with certain things or you're in a time crunch. I think I personally prepared for it for about 3 weeks, but it was definitely stressful because I was running out of time and I had to take it. But I would say like if you give yourself 2-3 months, you should be fine. And then obviously like targeting studying towards like the sections that you're less comfortable with first and ironing those out helps with the study timeline.
I 100% agree with Dina on that one. Because I also had like around 3 weeks, like 3, 4, maximum 5 weeks to take the GRE. Because taking the GRE is also a life choice, right? You're going to the job market or going to grad school. Like you're also in between that choice, right? So as I was deciding that, I decided to take the GRE and go for grad school and all. And I had like about a month to prepare. And I mean, it worked right, like we're all here. But if I were to say like, if you really want to be confident, if you really want to prepare yourself, adjust that in your routine at least like some 2 to 3 hours a day. I would say that you would need around 2 to 3 months to be very comfortable in a very good spot. But if you don't have that much time, don't freak out. Like you are able to take the test with a month or less of preparation, because nothing in the GRE is something that you have never seen in your life. I assume that if you're applying for the GRE, you probably already went to a bachelor's, correct? So it's probably something the content probably have already seen through high school or a bachelor's. So it's nothing that's totally new, but it can be tricky. So 2 to 3 months, very good preparation. Less than that, you can still make it, but you can gotta work hard.
Okay, we're gonna move on to
Yeah.
the next question because I do want to leave time for questions at the end. So, okay, so next question, Pedro, you can start off with this one. So when you were comparing the GRE to other exams, what made it feel a little bit more practical or even adaptable to the other choices that you had?
I'll be completely honest with you, I never consider anything else. Mostly because all the universities I was applying to, GRE was the choice to go. It was either GRE or no requirements at all. So I didn't have to choose. So it was actually a easy pick. There was a test that gave me ability to apply to every area I was looking for. So in that sense, yeah, I didn't have to choose between any of them. But I would say I was comfortable with the idea of taking a test that would let me pick my dates, pick my location, and also would be valid for a longer period of time, giving me a bigger span to retake if I needed. So yeah, in that sense, the flexibility really make my decision to take the GRE a little bit easier. It brought me a little bit more peace of mind.
Yeah. Dina and Gustavo, did you guys have other options like the GMAT or, well, GMAT is more for business school, but the EA, for example?
No, it was I think I'm also from an engineering background like Pedro, so for me it was also pretty much just the GRE as an option or like no other exam really.
For me, yes, just like them. I only had the GRE as an option for the programs that I wanted to apply. But the GRE wasn't very good in terms of you being allowed to send your scores to as many universities as you wanted to. So that really does open lots of opportunities. I felt like when I took the GRE, I could send my scores to anywhere. So that was definitely like a highlight of the GRE for me. You feel like you have all those possibilities in your hand that you can imagine your life in Florida or in Michigan or in Indiana. Like that this ability of like sending your scores anywhere was interesting. That really caught my mind when I was applying.
Yeah, totally. I guess I can bring in my personal experience with this kind of
Yeah.
question. I applied to business school like not too long ago, and I had the option of all three of those exams. I ended up going with the GRE though because of that flexibility that everybody like keeps mentioning. Um, yeah, it definitely was like the main thing for me, just like keeping my options open. And so that's definitely an advantage. And the fact that, all of you guys only had the GRE as an option kind of like gives a huge testament to it opens way many doors than just like one specific like industry, right? Or pathway. So yeah. The next question is for Dina specifically. So for students coming from Europe or considering studying internationally, what would you say about choosing a test that allows them to keep multiple pathways open?
I think it's smart in both a financial and just like time sense. I think, as we've mentioned before, it's easier to just have to study for one exam and then just taking one exam and then being able to send those scores off to several institutions, especially if you're considering different countries. Like when I applied for grad school, I applied to a bunch of universities in the United States, but I also applied to schools in Italy and Switzerland. And the fact that I was able to use the same exam for all of those applications was really helpful because it just streamlined the process. It was more time efficient for me. It was financially more like smarter. I didn't have to pay several different exam fees or like different like send out fees and whatnot. So it's just both like a financially and like time smart way, and it's like a good way to, I guess, like buff up your application if you're considering different countries that might have different requirements.
Totally, yeah. Okay, so now I want to hear from everybody. Looking back, how important was it to have flexibility in your application process? Who wants to start?
I can speak on it really quickly. So um I applied for grad school during the pandemic, so there were quite a few restrictions that were happening at the time. And something that was nice was being able to have an exam score that's like pretty standard, like someone can just like compare it and like have that um in my application. Whereas like had the pandemic not happened, the other opportunities would have presented themselves, but because there were limiting factors, like being unable to have like internship experiences or like lab experiences, which can obviously also happen outside of a pandemic setting. Like if there just isn't like an opportunity where you're currently at to gain that experience, I think having something added that you can pop into your application really helps.
I think
And
that overall, the flexibility that the GRE gives you makes the whole process a little bit easier. Because usually we end up taking the GRE because it's mandatory and we have to take it, and there's already a lot of pressure on us. But when you can like choose where you want to take the exam, what time, you can choose the schedule, you can choose which universities you want to send your application to. I think all that really like lowers the pressure on you that you need to take the exam at that date and that place and can only send to one place. That would make everything much harder and put a lot more pressure on you. So you take the exam and you can choose when, where, you can choose where you want to send that to. I feel like all those things really make the whole process way less stressful than it could be if it was the other way around.
yeah, something that I also wanted to add that I forgot to mention is that at the time that I was applying for grad school, because it was the pandemic, a lot of the GRE requirements were waived. And I know schools have been moving away from, not all of them. There's still a lot of programs that require the GRE, but there are also a decent amount of programs that don't require them anymore. I think taking the exam is probably a good idea if you're looking to try to get yourself to stand out in like a pool of applicants if like no one has taken the exam and because it wasn't necessary and you decided that you wanted to beef up your CV or like yourself as a candidate, having that in there is potentially a way to get yourself to stand out a little bit.
Yes, because it's a proof of your mathematical skills and your rational knowledge,
Hmm.
right? Like it shows how
Yeah.
good you are in analytics and all. So definitely buffers up your resume.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, one of the greatest things about the GRE, and that's specific from that time, as Gina said, I was thinking that we took that during the pandemic, and I was living with some people, and they were pretty much on lockdown, and if I couldn't take it from home, I would have to travel to take it from a different location. So go to an airport, take a plane of other people, spend 4 hours in facility of other people in a closed environment. So, and that's not only relevant for people who are in the pandemic setup, but also if you have social anxiety, if you are immunosuppressed, if you live with someone who is immunosuppressed, so they can give them a little bit more of comfort too. So in that sense, that's also interesting. And as Dina said, when I was taking also the GRE was kind of waived. It was actually optional, right? It was not 100%. They were still considering the GRE during your application, but it was optional. You didn't have to, and I decided to take it, and I feel like that helped me stand out because I got a good score, and I feel like all things combined, if they don't require something and you show them that okay, yeah, but I'm okay with it, and I just think I can still do well, uh, they'll actually strengthen your application. So in that sense, if you and here I'm trying to talk to everybody who's watching and consider taking the GRE. I would say most of the universities they'll be very clear if they're considering GRE or not. Some of them, as Dina mentioned, really uh, not not requesting anymore, and they are clear. We won't consider your GRE scores because from our point of view, it won't be a metric you're going to be using for evaluating applicants. So if that's the case, or perhaps you shouldn't. But if you're considering many universities, probably at least one of them is considering the GRE. So in that sense, yeah, you should take time to take the exam.
Yeah. I also
Yes.
think to add one more note to that is it's also very program dependent, master's versus PhD versus university. Sometimes they don't require it for a master's, but they will require it for a PhD. It also depends on the field that you're going into. As someone who's applied to both master's programs in the United States and PhD programs, I've seen a bit of discrepancy across the field. I think I've only encountered one or two programs that said we're not even going to look at GRE scores. Typically,
Mhm.
it's been either you don't have to, like it's optional, like if you want to submit a score you can, or they require it, and it's kind of like 50-50 on what university requires them.
Yeah.
I want you guys to hold that thought there, because one of the first questions that we have from our audience is precisely, the fact that now it's optional in many programs. But for our audience, everybody like watching right now, we're going to open up the chat for your questions. So if you have anything that's on your mind that you want to ask everybody or one panelist in specific, feel free to drop it in. But yeah, so question number 1. So how helpful is a GRE test really to get accepted, because it's not even required anymore? So going off of what we were just talking about, if I can put a little bit of my own experience right here, a lot of the business schools that I applied to actually did not have the requirement of the GRE, but especially if you want scholarships, financial aid, it can be really helpful to apply with the GRE, because it's one more statistic helping your application for a fellowship, for a merit-based scholarship, whatever it is. So I just wanted to add that piece of information. Now you guys.
I agree with Valeria in that one, because in my case, I only got my scholarship due to my GRE scores. So the GRE is definitely something that you should do. It's not because it's not mandatory that you should not do, because it helps with scholarships. I have a stipend to pay for me every month due to my GRE scores. So the GRE really buffers your application. So yes, it really helps.
Yeah. I think it also, like, obviously we can't say like whether the GRE is what like was a defining factor or not in acceptance, because we are not on the acceptance panel for the university. But I think it really helps, especially if you're coming from um, an international setting and you've never had experience in the United States. I know sometimes it's hard to translate your experience in your home country to a admissions panel in the United States. Um, or anywhere really if it's like international. And so having something that is pretty standard across the board, that like someone can just like look and like analyze helps. It helps, like, obviously if it's like optional and then you do it and you do good, it obviously can't hurt to include something like that. With like the exam, it's like the worst that can happen is you don't do well and then you don't send a score in. But like the best thing that can happen is you get a average to decent, like good score, and then you send it in and there's like perks to it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, if I have my perspective. So I have to agree with Dina. We are not a decision committee, so we don't know exactly how much the GRE was impactful, but we could only guess. But on the other hand, I would say it's a standardized test, and most of us international students, we are evaluating in our home countries or whatever we graduated, is a different metrics than the metrics that are used in the USA. So if when the committee is deciding which student should I let in, and you have a standardized way to actually measure the ability to do reasoning math-wise or logic-wise on the English section. So it is standardized, and in that sense, they have common ground for comparison. And in that sense, it gives them other tool to evaluate you and compare you to other candidates. I feel like that's the best strength of the GRE. I would say it's very difficult for us as students, especially because most of the decision making process is not disclosed to the people who join the university itself. It's very hard to us to estimate how impactful he was in our application. But as Dina said, if you perform and then you perform well, you know the quartile that your score brings you up to, and you usually have access to people who entered that program last semester or last year. What was their average? You usually have, and you can request the school to reply to information in that sense. So if you perform as good as them or better than them, then well, the GRE is definitely going to be something that won't harm your application and has the potential to help your application altogether. So although we cannot say for sure, I would say there are a lot of benefits that can come from it. And if you have the ability, the time, and the financial resources to take it, if it's not mandatory, and you practice and you see that you're performing well, I don't see a reason why I wouldn't submit it.
Yeah, it never hurts. You've said it better than anyone could have. Okay, so next question from the audience. Can you get a full funded scholarship from any U.S. school? And is there any advice? Gustavo, I know you mentioned you have a scholarship. I'm wondering, is it fully funded?
Yes, so my scholarship is fully funded. I don't pay anything to study, and they actually pay me an amount of dollars per month. That's basically enough for me to, pay my rents, do my groceries. So I'm basically living here for free. Due to my scores in the GRE, that helped my application, and they found me fit for the scholarship program that I'm in. So yes, you can get fully funded. Plus, they call it a stipend, but it's basically a salary, right? A wage for you to pay your bills every month. And yes, it's totally possible. And I mean, in my case, the GRE allowed me to get in the scholarship and then the stipend scholarship too, altogether. So yes, it's possible.
I can offer a little bit different perspective to that, and just like a slight nuance, I guess. It really depends on several factors, like
Yes.
the level of like so whether you're doing a master's degree or a PhD, that really impacts the type of financial aid you can expect to receive, as also the type of institution that you're going to. So
Mm-hmm.
a private institution, smaller private institution compared to a large public school. Having gone to both and also having family who is currently in school, the experience, like what I've noticed, like the trend is that it's easier to get financial aid packages from smaller private institutions than it is from big public funded schools. Just both across masters, like PhD is different because PhD programs are typically fully funded programs. So if you get admitted into a PhD program, 99% of the time that's going to be a tuition waiver, so you don't pay tuition, then you get a monthly stipend that covers your day to day. For masters, it's harder because typically masters programs are the moneymakers for universities. There is obviously opportunity to get financial aid. It's slightly more limited than obviously like what PhD is. Gustavo, I think your experience is a little different, but during my PhD, or not PhD, during my master's application process, there were significant limits to um, financial aid, and the places that offered financial aid were typically smaller private universities compared to large public institutions. Um, that's kind of my 2 cents on
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could add a little bit to that, there are a few different places from where your funding can come from. We have scholarships and fellowships, which are pretty much awards, and they usually related maybe because you have a high merit, or maybe because you're within a group and you're standing up. Inside that group, that is not highly represented universities. So there are a lot of places where scholarships and fellowships can come from. But we also have to think about where most of the financial support comes from. It's from research funds, and if you're going for a research program, and that's very important to highlight, there are a lot of different programs. If you're going for professional masters, the ability of you to get a full ride scholarship, fellowship, or whatever is very, very, very small, right? Usually when you're going for a professional program, it's understood that it's a shorter term, and there's not a lot of contributions you put to the university. Going there and take mostly classes, you really do not help with their ongoing research, or you don't really do a lot of assistance in the classroom. So in that sense, you don't provide a lot of value to the university, and then you pay everything. But if you're going for a thesis program, usually master's and PhD, usually contributing to some research which is already in progress for some PI, some principal investigator, professor. And in that sense, you can get funded. Now, again, as Dina said very, very, very nicely, if you're in a master's program, your ability to get funded is much smaller. And the reason for that is that because we assume that when you enter a master's program, you're going to be learning. So you're fresh from undergrad, and there's a lot of things you don't know. You have pretty much undergrad perspective of things, and you got to grow into a scientist. And 2 years is not enough for you to do that. So the risk of you graduating and really not delivering much is much smaller than it would be for a 4 year, 6 year PhD program, and you have time and a bigger commitment to be that person that would deliver and grow and actually be a scientist. So in that sense, yeah, masters are limited in comparison with PhD. Not only if you're going for professional programs, but even if you're going for thesis. But there is a possibility you get, especially if you're involved into research. And a lot of big institutions, I agree that scholarship and fellowships are more competitive. But if you're going for bigger institutions, there's also the ability, if you stand out, to be a teaching assistant. So one possibility is that you join the program and you're not fully funded, and then you stand out. Professors and the department like the way you support your peers and understand the content and the way you're responsible about academic matters. And then in that case, they can provide you with a teaching assistantship that will pretty much be doing class related stuff to help a professor with their grading in academic duties, and in that sense you can still get fully funded, and plus a stipend to help you with your living expenses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just if I could just like add a little bit more on that one. Yeah. I think you should also, if you're really looking for financial aid, usually universities have like a graduate program coordinator, who's usually a person like handles all the graduate students that you should contact. Because it varies per university. Some universities have like fully funded for all the years of the graduate study. Some is only for part of it. Some is not everything but the summer. So the very details of each program, you should talk to the university that you are applying to, that you're thinking about applying.
All right. Well, thank you all for giving such insightful advice. Yeah, that was really, really good insights. So thank you all. Going off of the similar topic, for the PhD candidates on here, one person asked, can you kindly let me know about both postdoctoral positions for education and what sorts of funding is available? Thank you.
A clarifying question: when they say postdoctoral positions for education, do you mean the field of education or like postdoc? It depends, I think, on maybe your niche of education that you're in. I think right now, funding, especially in higher education, is a pretty hot topic. Funding has been significantly reduced. So I think it's the best way to get more information about postdoc positions in general would be to reach out to PIs of interest, people that you want to work with, people that you're interested in, and asking and like what their funding status is. And obviously like showing interest in their program. Like you don't want to just knock on someone's door and be like, do you have money? You like want to be interested in what they're doing, first off, but inquiring about funded positions is not atypical. Like that's something that I would recommend doing for both postdoc positions and also people that are looking to enter PhD programs right now. I know you guys, Pedro, you're in your last year of your PhD. And I think, Gustavo, you said that you're entering a PhD program.
Yes.
I'm also entering a PhD program, but this is my second cycle of applications because funding has been super restricted and it's been kind of a challenge. So I think putting yourself out there is typically what helps with creating contacts with labs, showing interest, and then figuring out what the funding in specific universities is like.
Exactly. And like even going off of what Dina is saying right here, I want to share my personal experience. I got a partially funded fellowship at University of Southern California by literally emailing the program director and being like, hey, I'm really interested in this program. I don't have any financial aid and I can't pay it in full. So like, what can we do? Of course, the email was a little bit more detailed than that and like not as direct, but my point being that if you reach out to people, even if you don't get financial aid right from the very beginning of the acceptance letter, don't just assume that it's a done for deal and that you can't get anything from that. This is where negotiations kick in and you can absolutely get a fellowship either fully funded or partially funded even. So don't give up. Does anybody want to add something else before we wrap up this section?
I think I must. as to the postdoc question. I think it's important that you realize at this stage of your career, where you're already a doctor, and if you're applying for country A, B, or C, that there are two different pathways that can get you into postdoc. You can get an externally funded position for a postdoc, and that there are institutions that provide very meaningful funded opportunities like this MIT fellowship, and you can get $100,000 per year to cover your expenses, plus some research funds, right? So that's amazing. But most of the postdoc positions out there are funded by the PI, and there is no specific program or school. There's actually the money the PI has. So what you got to do, you got to actually look into your field of interest, and that should be related to your PhD, because it's very unlikely that someone is going to hire a postdoc who is doing a postdoc on something they have never explored before. Although there are some opportunities out there for this kind of things, it's kind of a niche, right? So you look for those positions, look to the PIs that stand out in that field, and you should be aware who they are because you're already a doctor. And then you talk to them directly. Hey, I feel like my research aligns with you. I can contribute to your research in these. I think I can contribute if your research program in these specific areas, and I'll be interested to meeting and discussing possibilities of contributing to your team as a postdoc if you're open to it. So that's how it goes. And what's going to tell you, what's going to get you in or not, is a single person, is the PI. There's nothing else. You don't need to take GRE for postdoc positions. You don't need approval from the department itself. As long as you're eligible for the visa, if your PI says you're getting in, you're getting in, because he's the boss and he's the one caring about the funding and the resources. So I would say that in those cases, and you're approaching professors, which is typical how you do for postdoc positions, there's no easy answer to that question, because it's really dependent on the PI resources at that moment.
Pedro, sorry for interrupting, but we do have to wrap up in 4 minutes. So I do want to answer one last question from the audience. They're asking, is there a GRE promo code? Yes, there is. Okay, so if you go to ets.org/GRE and sign up to their newsletter, sometimes they actually give free or discount codes via their newsletter. So you can absolutely do that. Make sure to do that after this session. And okay, so thank you so much, you guys, Dina, Gustavo, Pedro, for sharing your study abroad and GRE experiences. And thank you to everybody who joined us live today and asked such thoughtful questions throughout the session. We truly appreciate you being part of this conversation. And yeah, I mean, like the GRE, just a reminder, the GRE supports that approach by providing access to more than 20,000 programs worldwide, allowing applications across multiple disciplines, offering a test experience designed to give students more control. And so for planning your next step, choosing a test that keeps options open can make a meaningful difference. So again, thank you so much, you guys, for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you in the future session. And to learn more about the GRE and explore available resources, please visit ets.org/GRE. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.